Hey y'all, welcome back to Same Old T. I'm your girl T, and in today's video, we will be recapping and reacting to season 1, episode 2 and 3 of Netflix Later Dater. Let's get into it. So, episode 2 starts with Anise showing us that she was completely over her date with George. You remember George from episode 1, the one who asked her about how many baby daddies, if she had any work done to her body, and just all the shenanigans that he pulled. So she does get with her daughter, Dawana, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. And Dawana wants a play-by-play debriefing of the date with George, but Anise is so over it. She's just like, let me try to give you just the highlights. And so by the time she was done, her daughter was in agreement that George, no second date. We moving on. So Anise is going on a second date. She's actually going out with Nate. Yes, Nate from episode 1. And so they meet up. Looks like it's kind of like a rooftop type restaurant. They actually look like they had coordinated because the colors that they wore, the outfits were very complimentary. They exchanged pleasantries. So they sit down. They begin, to chit chat and things of that nature. Everything's going very well. I think they both definitely found each other, attractive, well put together. So Anise, lets Nate know that she's 62, asked him if he had ever dated an older woman. And Nate honestly was like, no, never dated an older woman. So then Nate is being vulnerable, talking about his experience in the Army, and that, how he used to jump out of airplanes. And then Anise is like, I want to do that. And then he's like, well, yeah, I ended up breaking my back. And then she like, it was kind of like a cringe moment. I was like, oh my God, you ever had that experience where like you say something and you wish like, dang, I wish I could take it back. But she didn't know, right? She didn't know the extent of his injuries and things of that nature. He was being vulnerable, talking about his injury. And then she started talking about her education. And Nate was actually, excited and like, hey, congratulations to you. That's what I'm talking about, because she shared, that she had her doctorate and stuff. And so, Nate was like, hey, I like that. I told them when I started this process, I'm looking for somebody who is educated. So it seemed like that made Anise, feel good. Didn't feel, I guess, judged or what have you. Everything was still going, really well. Not giving woman fuzzy, wasn't given romantic, like mutual respect. Like, hey, you got it going on, I got it going on. But I don't know. Something just kind of made me feel like I don't know if the connection is going to be that strong. Nate revealed that he's a homebody. Anise revealed that, she's very active and things of that nature. Nate was saying, hey, if you like to be out the way you look, any man will be like, well, I'm going too, and then Anise was saying, well, you can't do all the hiking and things of that nature. That's something you can always do with your friends. So it seemed like they were trying to figure out, some of the things that they would like in a mate if they, could kind of work around, but maybe they were just giving it to us for the show. Because by the time they got in there, like debriefing with Logan, Nate was not really feeling that she was older. Not that she looks older, but that the fact that she actually is older, that's kind of outside his desired age range. And then Anise, her debriefing was, she wasn't crazy that he was a homebody. She clearly wants whoever she's in a relationship with, to be out and about, whether it's the active thing or just, being out and social. So they both kind of left it open ended that they're not opposed to a second date, but they both admitted that, the woman fuzzies wasn't there. So that's Anise's second date with Nate. Okay, so remember, I'm combining episode 2 and 3. I think this is episode 3, which is Anise's third date. It's with a white gentleman. His name is Bill. He's 55. He's been divorced 2 times. He has 2 kids, and he's like a CEO of a tech startup. So They meet at like I guess a wine bar type thing. Um, and he opens the door for her. And she didn't realize it was him. She did know that she was going on a date with a white guy, but she didn't know it was him. So she was kind of surprised or what have you. She felt that he was handsome. He felt like she was well put together. And when I went back to get my notes together, I noticed that he didn't, he talked about her being, well put together, this and that, but he never said beautiful or I find her highly attractive. So I was like, he might have been kind of telling on himself at that time. But anyway, he is from England, so he has an accent. So, most people most Americans love an accent. And so they sit down. It's a wine and caviar and, little crackers and cheese and meat kind of place. So they're just kind of exchanging pleasantries. He's asking her if she ever had caviar, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "This is his first time," blah blah blah. And so then he breaks the ice, in my opinion. He has a good sense of humor. He says, "I have a question to ask you." So of course she stopped fixing her little cracker and like, "Yes," and he's like, "What's your thoughts about white after Labor Day?" And so like she cracked up. It was cute. And so she was like, I used to be hard fast, no, white pants or whatever after Labor Day, but she's like, now I'm more open or whatever. And so that kind of broke the ice. So, but Anise, who, if I think I mentioned this, she was originally from Arkansas and obviously living in Georgia now. So she grew up at a time when segregation was heavy. So she's like really intrigued, like, and asked him like, well, what did you think? Or, how did you feel when they told you you'll be going on a blind date with a black woman? And so he's kind of hemming and hawing, or what have you. And then he just replies and he say, well, I only date black women. So then now she like, oh, well, I'm leaned in now because I guess because of her own previous experience, right? Even though she admitted that she had been on a couple of dates with white guys before in the past, I guess it was just like, oh, really? So you only date black women? I'm intrigued. Okay, so that's it for Anise. Date 2 with Nate, date 3 with Bill. Okay, so we start episode 2 with Susan. And Susan, if you recall, is the 63-year-old semi-retired optometrist. She had went out on that first date with Frank. But episode 2 opens where she's kind of revealing, like, even though clearly Frank is feeling her, because like he didn't found her on Facebook, because remember he never got her number, he messaging her, but she like, let's go on to the second date. So second person to date. So the reason she wasn't really ready to move on with Frank, even though it seemed like they had a really, really good date, was the young children. And then she said also, he clearly likes younger women. So I guess she felt like, I don't even want to go down this road if I feel like this guy is going to, always have his eyes on a younger girl. And I was like, you know what? I ain't mad at her. You know what I'm saying? He's 63, but he got a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. So, his wife, his ex-wife was definitely younger. And he does, in hindsight, he do kind of give you that I date, women 10, 15, 20 years younger than me. So I ain't mad at her. Like, why waste your time, right? So she is all geared up and ready for her second date. All right, so her second date is with Avery. He's 59. He's been divorced 2 times. He has 3 kids. He's a financial advisor. And the first thing she noticed is he didn't bring her no flowers. And she was not feeling that at all. But he made up for it because she thought he was handsome. So, of course, they're kind of like at a wine bar again. And Suzanne has her wine. I noticed she started with white. By the time the date was over, she had a glass of red. So I was like, interesting. And so, they begin to talk, come to find out they have some things in common in regards to kind of like the medical field, even though he is a financial advisor, but he has a twin who's like a neurosurgeon or something like that. And so Suzanne, being a physician, knows who his brother is. And then her deceased husband, was in medical devices in sales, I guess. And so come to find out, Avery has some of those screws in his back. And so it was just one of those kind of like, it's a small world, coincidences. So Avery's being a little mysterious, but it's crazy because Suzanne is kind of like, I kind of like that. Like he wasn't very forthcoming with some of his answers, whereas she did admit Frank was like wearing his heart on his sleeve, So it's real interesting that Frank was very upfront and, direct, hopeful, gave her these flowers, like this rose represents first date, second date, third date, hopefully a fourth date, things of that nature. But then you got this mysterious guy who's not really being forthcoming with his answers. He didn't bring you flowers, but she like, I'm feeling them a little bit. So it's like you never know what sparks a person's interest, right? So come to find out, he's from Alabama. So of course he's an Alabama football fan, which we already know Suzanne does not like because she is a Georgia Bulldog fan. And so no flowers, not a Georgia Bulldog fan, but she's still, intrigued by him. So, of course, we don't know if it's editing or what have you, but it appeared that they had a nice conversation before Suzanne remembered to do the whole Matthew McConaughey thing, right? So she brings it up and this and that. And then Avery was like, oh, yeah, I love, Matthew McConaughey. And then he's like, come on, come on, come on. I was like, what? And then I was like, oh my God, everybody knows all right, all right, all right. That was so funny to me. I guess he was just like, I like her. I'm feeling her vibe. I'm going to go, I'm going to roll with whatever she say. Right. So, he feeling her. So he asked her about, how would you like to go on a second date? And she like clutches her pearls like, you can't ask me that now. And he's like, well, why not? And she's like, because, you just can't. And so I don't think he liked that because if I mention like, a second date and you like, you can't ask me that, I would probably feel like, okay, well, I thought we was vibing, but maybe you ain't feeling me, So the date comes to an end. Her daughter comes in. I think the daughter's name is Allison, and she basically is definitely like a younger version of the mom, with the laughing and the giddiness and, good energy and everything like that. So they debrief with Logan. And, Suzanne's telling her, like, he asked me about a second date, and, I'm not going to give him an answer now. And so Logan was just basically saying, like, Suzanne is using, like, the dating rules of yesteryear, right? Which you got to remember, she's 63. She's was in a relationship, married or what have you, since she was 28. So, she thinks like a woman is supposed to, be mysterious and not show, all her cards and things of that nature. So Logan, like, we're going to have to pull you up. Like, it's okay to say yes if a man asks you out on a second date in real time. You don't have to play this hard to get, kind of thing. So I was like, wow, that is kind of interesting. Like, yeah, what are the rules? I've only been married, it'll be 8 years in April, and I probably wouldn't make it out here. I probably wouldn't make it. I probably would not make it out here. My husband was a very attentive listener, and it's like he loved every word that came out of my mouth, regardless of whatever I was talking about. So if it's anything outside of that, as far as the stories I hear from some of my friends who are still single or find themselves newly single after being in relationships or marriages, whatever, I'll probably be out here looking real crazy because just communicating just with friends can be so just wonky these days. So I can only imagine being an older person trying to date, and not knowing, what's the rules anymore, kind of thing. So that was Suzanne's second date. Okay, so we go into episode 3 with Suzanne, and she's grilling with her family. Like, I think her sons come over, and she's kind of just telling them, like, hey, I've, been on 2 dates. She gives a little bit of info about Frank and then a little bit about Avery, and, just saying how she feels like she has the right to be choosy, and of course her sons, and I think that's her daughter, soon to be husband or something like that. Of course they're like, yeah, mom, you have the right to be choosy and things like that. And she does, right? We all do. There's nothing wrong with being selective. There's a lot of us out here that probably need to be more selective. And so one thing that she said, and I was like, oh, what do people say? That's a bar, that's a word. She said, I am not trying to be a nurse or a purse. Okay. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. I like, Lord forbid, if something happened to my husband, that would be what's on my brain. I'm not trying to be a nurse because I see a lot of people getting in relationships just to be in a relationship. But the man, his health is so poor, right? A lot of times it's type 2 diabetes, uncontrolled type 2 diabetes, and uncontrolled blood pressure. And so now you have this healthier woman coming in who just kind of wants to be in a relationship. So they kind of just clinging to the pluses of this person. But in so many words, you become a nurse to them, right? And then some of them, I hear stories, that the guy is like on disability. So that means, income is limited. And then the woman is still, making good money. So now you the purse too. And it's just like, I wasn't mad at Suzanne for that. Clearly she is well off. And I guess she's saying, I ain't looking to spend the next 20, 30 years of my life going into it, knowing I got to take care of you from, a health perspective or a financial aspect. I'm not mad at her. Kudos to Suzanne for that. So based on editing, seems like a couple of days have passed since Suzanne and Avery's first date. He gives her a call. She's kind of, giddy on her back porch or whatever. And he's like asking her again out on a second date. And she's like, she actually answers him now, like, yes, we can go on a second date. He's like, how about Saturday? And she's like, well, that's going to be a problem because Georgia's playing. And so he's like, well, we can incorporate it. And it's like, she's like, I don't know, basically like, I don't know how much he meant that because, he's an Alabama fan. So my little 2 cents about that is I feel like she's doing the most. But then I was like, let me think. Back when Derrick Rose was with the Bulls, I was riding hard for Derrick Rose and the bench mob in the Bulls. And so I don't think that would have kept coming up for me if I had met somebody that I felt like I was really feeling. If they wasn't like a diehard Bulls fan like I was, because look at me now. The team now, I don't, I know who they are. I catch them when I can, but it's not like I used to be. Like I was DVRing the game if I had to go somewhere, I was tuned in, okay? So yeah, obviously it would have been great if I had met somebody who was, rocking with them as hard as I was. But it's like, okay, girl, Jesus, you gonna miss out on, a potentially good man because they not a diehard Georgia Bulldog fan. It's called, people can, oh Lord, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, if people have not been exposed to something or this, and that, who knows? They might end up enjoying it, kind of thing, right? So just because they don't have experience or that's not how they feel today, don't mean that they won't feel that way tomorrow. So it's just like, God, all right, enough. I was like, I'm sure the Georgia Bulldogs, they stock or they what is it called, booster clubs, because She got to be the president of it. Okay. All right. So now we get to Nate. Nate, like I already kind of discussed Nate with his date with Anise. But in episode 2, he does do a recap with Jackie, which is his oldest daughter's mom. And, Jackie wants details. And he like, I don't have details for you. So she was kind of like, come on. And he just basically was recapping what I had already talked about last video, that, even though she checked quite a few boxes for him, that that whole piece that he felt like she would, want somebody church going like every Sunday and this and that just was not where he was at in his life at this time. He said he said to Jackie, I'm a CNE Christian. And Jackie was like, a what? And he's like, a CNE. I go to church on Christmas, New Year's, and Easter. She was like, oh boy, you just made that up. And he was like, no, Google it. She's like, I am going to Google it. And so that was my first time hearing about hearing it that way. But I have heard, some people like, I go to church, basically them 3 times. And, that's it. So then he recaps his, I think in episode 3, he again is kind of recapping with Jackie about his date with Anise. And basically it was the same thing. Like, she was educated. She wasn't, harassing him about, going to church or, that whole kind of piece. She was attractive, all those things. But that she was an older woman, she was outside of his desired age bracket. That was kind of like the deal breaker or what have you. And like I said, on Anise's part of this video, they both kind of left the door open. That they definitely were not like, I absolutely would not go on a second date, with this person. So y'all have to just tune in. If you haven't been watching it, or you didn't already watch the whole, Netflix series, to find out if they give a second date a chance. So episode 3, the last time we see Nate, he is preparing for his 3rd date. And we'll get more into that in the next video. Oh boy. So now we get introduced to Pam. Pam is 70 years old. She's been married twice and widowed twice. She is a retired flight attendant, and I think she has 1 kid. She, her granddaughter, her adult granddaughter, lives with her. Like, she's had custody of her since she was like 10 or 11. And she is, I would just say youthful energy spirit. She's a lot to take in, right? So Logan comes out for her visit. Pam stays about 50-60 miles outside of Atlanta. Like, it's super rural. I think she said they had just got like internet. So I'm like, ooh, okay, this is the real country. And so Logan comes out for her visit, and her home is almost like, it's very eclectic. You know what I'm saying? It's not that it's dated, but it's just like all these artifacts. That's how it felt like, just all these artifacts and tributes and things of that nature. So her first husband was a musician that I guess was, traveling with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and, that whole era. And so she has some of his like gold records and, autographs from the Beatles and that kind of spiel. Then her second husband, I guess he was, just a regular guy, whatever. And I think they was married 20 something years. He must have had a terminal illness. They had gave him 6 months to live. He ended up living 5. And so, I think he had been gone like 15 years. So she had been single all that time, since the second husband died. So it's a lot of evidence to those 2 marriages, like the past. And so, Logan kind of noted that, she got dogs, she got birds. It's just, I don't know. It's like a vibe, like hippie, Woodstock, like just all that kind of vibe. So Logan, um, I like the way that she kind of described it. She was like, Pam's home is like almost like a shrine to the past. And she's like, she tells a lot of ghost stories. And I had never heard of it expressed that way. And so basically, like the coaching that Logan was giving her in preparation for her first date is to be present. Like Pam lives in the past, like not just reflected in her home, but like in her mind too. So she's like, be in the present and think about the future and not default to the past, right? Telling these ghost stories, telling, these stories of when the first husband was alive, or telling stories of when the second husband was alive, and things of that nature. So Pam says she got it. We'll find out how well she did on her first date. Okay, so Pam goes out on her first date. Guy's name is Robert. He's 65. I think he's a two-time divorcee. He has one kid, and he's a sound mixer. And so the date starts off smooth. They're like at a bar or what have you, and then it went left. Like I could tell she just started rambling off at the mouth, like the craziest things. She started telling ghost stories. She started just talking about random things, just that was popping into her head. And dude was trying to, one, get to know her by asking her questions, which in a normal situation, you would think the person in return would ask a question, but she wouldn't do that. So he like drinking his beer and, trying to engage. And then it just got to the point where he was like, you don't know nothing about me. Like you don't know nothing about me. And, that went right over her head, because then she just kept on babbling and rambling and all this kind of gibberish. It was insane. So now we go into episode 3 with Pam. She's still on this date with Robert. And so, he had kind of got irritated. He was like, you haven't asked me a single question about myself. So then I think she asked him a question. He's like, oh, now you want to ask questions or whatever. And so I forgot what it was. I think he gave an answer. And then she's like, but I want to bring up one more thing. And she's like, did you know that the Egyptians used half their brain, and that's why they were able to build the pyramids, but we only use a third, and that's why we are, in the state that we are now. And dude just kind of like threw his hands up like, what the F? What the F? So he just let her go on and on. I mean, she was talking about everything, climate control, talking about the Panama Canal. I think she was talking, like she was just all over the place. And I was like, when I was watching, I said, she must be nervous. And it seemed like she was a little tipsy too, but you didn't see her drink. And that could just be the edit. I don't know. So he said, I gotta go. And she's like, do you have to go, or you just want to go so bad? And he's just like, you are an experience, And so she just was acting crazy. He walking towards the stairs and she doing like karate chop kicks. And he's like, don't push me down the stairs. Because I guess he was like, I don't know what this, lady is liable to do. But he gave her a hug and like a kiss on the cheek. And then like in his confessional, he was just like, yeah, she's a big personality. She's a lot. I wish her well on her journey. So, Pam is feeling a little bad. And so it's time for her to debrief with Logan. And she's telling her like, I just, this is the first time I've been on a date, and God knows when. Nervous and I'm awkward and, wondering like, are they going to want to see me again? And all this stuff. I felt bad for her. And so Logan just told her, she said, something I want you to remember for your second date, next person you're going to date with, is it's better to be interested than to be interesting or interesting. Potato. And so I was like, that's a good way to kind of keep that in your mind. am I being interested? So that will make you say, am I asking questions? Am I inquiring about them? Or, things like that. But if you find yourself saying, oh, I'm interesting or interesting, it's because you're doing all the talking. You're doing all the talking. So she told her, next time you're on a date and you feel like you're, rambling or talking too much, take a sip of water and it gives the other person a chance, to talk. And I was like, that was so good for somebody like Pam, because she already was, I felt bad for her. I felt like she was, kind of beating herself up because she know that was just a 100% sugar honey iced tea show. Okay. It was a hot mess. I was like, woo. He was a good sport because I was like, I think I'd have been like, production. I ain't about to waste my time with this lady. This is some crazy mess. Okay. I'd have been like Anise did with George. Let's wrap this up real quick. So anyway, that was her first date. Okay, so now Pam is going on her second date. I think this is going into episode 3. And her granddaughter helps her. So I think that helped calm her nerves too, because the first time it was just her, the dogs, and the bird. But this time, her granddaughter was able to kind of give her some more pointers and kind of bring her grandma back, bring the things back to her grandma's mind regarding the things Logan said, and things of that nature. So she goes out. I guess, I don't know. Seemed like it was almost the same place that she went on the first date, but they had sushi and sake. So, but it wasn't giving like sushi, sake vibes. So I don't know the restaurant, but she did so much better, right? She wasn't talking about all the weird things and everything that's wrong with the world and this, and that. And they were able to, go back and forth, and, make some, little jokes and things of that nature. And so they're eating the sushi. She was drinking the sake. She was a little awkward, a little quirky, but I think he vibed with it. He liked it. Oh, I didn't even tell y'all his name. So he is Paul. He is 62, never been married, don't have any kids. And he's a singer-songwriter. So, she was able to talk a little bit about music, talk about her everyone in her family is kind of musically inclined or what have you, but not going deep into like ghost stories and things like that. So they talked about the things they had in common. She was really liking him, right? He kind of fed her a little bit of the sushi or whatever food, and then he's like, oh, she gave me a lot of pats. So when you kind of like somebody in the early stages, you might, laugh and hit them or hit their hand and stuff. So she was doing that, and I had picked up on it before he even said it. Like I was like, oh, she liked him because she wasn't doing that with Robert. And so they had a good time. He asked for her number, and that seemed like that kind of made her giddy a little bit. And so they exchanged numbers, and then he was about to leave, and she kissed him right on the lips. Like, whoa, she really had a good time, right? And so dude was like, hey, I wasn't expecting it, but it is what it is. It's all good. He walks off, and she's standing there grinning like what they call a chessy cat. She had a good time and she liked them. And so she redeemed herself a bit on this second date. Okay, so in episode 3, we get introduced to Lori. She's 57. She's divorced. She has 2 adult children. She's like a student engagement behavior therapist, like for the school district, working with kids. And by night, she goes by Rich Auntie Lori. So she's kind of like a media correspondent, the people who, I guess, interview you and things like that at red carpets and galas and things of that nature. So she does that, in the evening and things of that nature. Okay, so Lori's been single for about 15 years. And, she's just ready to prioritize, finding love, or companionship, being in a relationship. She was saying that, like, when she comes home, she just sits in her car and, like, decompress for an hour because, she's not coming home to somebody. Um, and I could relate to that. I could relate to, um, wanting to come home to somebody. Like when I got to the point, I was what, maybe in my late 30s, I was like, I remember telling my mom, I said, I see why people settle down. I see why people have kids because it's like after you've done the degrees or you bought a home or, you've done all these things like as a single person, right? That you feel like you want to do by yourself to prove that you can do it. You want to now share your life, or do something different, right? Her kids were grown, so probably when the kids were growing up, she could put that energy into helping the kids, grow and develop. But now they like grown. I think her son is in college. I don't know if the daughter is in college as well, but they must go to school kind of locally. Um, yeah, she's kind of coming home to like an empty house, I think. And so yeah, one, she probably definitely need to decompress because it sounds like she's, dealing with a challenging demographic in the school system since she says she's a behavioral therapist. So yeah, she probably do have to decompress, but wouldn't it be nice to kind of decompress, with a companion, right? To ask you how your day was, to vent, to go out to dinner, just to kind of step away. So I definitely can relate to that. And so she's like saying, you know, it's her time. She want to prioritize, finding love and finding companionship. She wants to, find somebody to spend this second half of her life with. And I can relate. So Lori, when she's doing her rich Auntie Lori work, she's meeting people, right? She's meeting guys. She's on red carpets and galas and things of that nature. And so she's like, I meet plenty of men, but nobody is basically coming at her. Like, she's in the friend zone with them. Like, she's so cool and this, and that. And so it's like she don't know what's up. Like, what else can she do, or what is she not doing to give off the energy that I'm interested, or hey, ask me out on a date kind of thing. And so that's where Logan is coming in to help Lori with that. So Logan comes to Lori's house. She kind of shows her around and things of that nature. And so Lori, talks about, she feels like she's just in the friend zone with all these men that, she might be interested in going on a date with. And so it's one guy that she really is, kind of feeling. His name is Felton. But she's like, I feel like I'm for sure in the friend zone. And, I would like some coaching and guidance around that to see if, I can get myself out of the friend zone with him. And so, Logan is giving her, some coaching and things like that. So Lori wears these big glasses, right? All shapes and sizes. And so Logan asks her, is like, what's up with the glasses? And, Lori kind of like, these, this is my statement piece. These are my glasses. These are my, you know. And so Logan says, I wonder if the glasses are like a mask, that like, is this Lori or is this rich Auntie Lori, with the glasses or whatever. But Lori say no, if she don't have her glasses on, she says she's more not approachable. But when she has the glasses on, she's more approachable. So I'm like, I think Logan might be a little bit right. Like she's hiding behind the glasses, so to speak. I know big glasses are in, and I know a lot of people like them. But yeah, sometimes I feel like it takes away from you as a person, because they are such a statement, and all people see is these glasses. And they probably, and Logan kind of said that, like, I wonder if people see you with these glasses and see you more like as a character, right? The rich Auntie Lori character versus Lori, the behavioral scientist, the mom, and to where they will want to get to know you. Because with the glasses, they probably feel like they know you rich Auntie Lori, and the energy and the vibe that comes with that. So I thought that was pretty interesting, that observation, because I thought the same thing. So last scene with Lori, for episode 3, her and her son are sitting down eating dinner, and she asked him, "Would you date me?" And her son almost, I feel like, choked on his food. I thought that was a weird question to ask your son, but I don't know. I've heard of people, asking. I've heard of women asking their sons that. Um, I don't know. That just seemed kind of weird, because like you, they mom, so they probably always gonna say no, and he did. And so she was like, "Well, why?" And he was just like, in so many words, she's a very dominant presence, right? And that's right. His experience of you is not as a potential mate; it's as his mom, who, got divorced and felt like, it sounds like their dad just was not in the picture, because it sounded like she was like a for real, like, single mom, not co-parenting or anything like that. So, he was like, no, you're very dominant, very, kind of in your face. And I guess he like, nah, I want a softer woman. So Lori was like, that's what she's really trying to hone in, like her softer side. But she's like, she had to admit that no one has given her like a soft, safe space to land. And I can relate to that. It's so funny. So many people, when me and my husband uh, were dating and got married, so many people felt like I was just ruling him, or just, being like, "Ugh." And it's like, no, that's how I am with you. Because that's how I gotta be with you, like family and friends. It's like, no, I gotta be no nonsense with you. I have to be stern with you, because of your shenanigans and things of that nature. And my brother even said one time, he's like, well, how you mean to your husband or whatever. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I ain't mean to him, and it's so funny. My husband, I didn't have to continue, what, as I like to say, I didn't have to be a man. I was a single woman with multiple uh, uh, multiple homes. I had a career, I had side hustles. I had all these things that I had to do by myself. So yeah, you need a level of, I guess, assertiveness, right? But once I got married, hey, my husband was like, I wouldn't feel like a man if I didn't pay the mortgage. I'm like, hey, yeah, that'll soften you up real quick. That'll soften you up real quick if you've been paying the mortgage by yourself all that time. So I can relate to what she means, that, you have to find someone that makes you, one, feel safe to soften up, and won't hold it against you, or won't use it as a ploy to, get control, because that's a whole nother video. I know plenty of people who, I kind of talked about it in my video, about is being a trophy wife really what it's cracked up to be. Sometimes people will create that soft space, safe space for you, but it's really just um, a mask to get control of you. And now they kind of dictate you. It's like too much. But anyway, back to what we're talking about. So that is where we leave off with Lori. And so that is my recap reactions to episodes 2 and 3 of Netflix Later Daters. I will combine as much as I can. I hope you're enjoying these. I hope it's prompting you to go and watch it if you haven't. Again, any comments you have relating this, or if this triggered a thought in your head about maybe your later dating experience, make sure you put it in the comments. I do want to attempt to go live when I'm done with this series, just to vibe out with y'all and to kind of do a trial run so that we can do our book club. So still working to get the tech together. So I am working on it, guys. I haven't forgot. So until next time, I am out. Peace.